I know I got a little bit of a mess here, but I am going to do a little video on how to scan something. That's the Creality CR01 or CR Scan-01 scanner. This whole process would be the same thing with any of their scanners. But I'm going to scan this little pot, little clay pot, and because I'd like to 3D print it. And the scanner comes with a turntable that's hooked to the scanner on the side here. And then this is the USB power, USB cable and power cable. Now, I did find an issue that this cable's only about 6 feet long. So I had to use an extension cable. And I run a Mac with an M2 processor, M2 Max. And with my Mac Mini, it was running an i7 with a Windows box. Everything worked fine with an extension cable. But once I moved to the M2 Max, I had all kinds of problems. I couldn't get it connected. It wasn't pushing enough power. So I had to buy a USB 3.2, 20 gigabits per second cable. And then I finally got this thing working as it should. The M2 Max is an amazing processor. It does a great job with this scanning. So anyhow, first thing you want to do is get your item and put it right in the middle of the turntable. And then we're going to move to the software, and I'll show you what you got to do.
All right, this is Creality's CR Studio. So when you first bring it up, you want to go into Table Scan, and then you want to hit Preview. And this will give you an idea of what the scanner is seeing. And you want to go ahead and adjust your camera. You can zoom in a little bit, but you can adjust the camera or the camera and the scanner until it fits right in the center of what you're scanning. So this gives you a preview of what you're looking at. So once you got that comfortable, I mean you like what you're looking at, you want to go ahead and make sure it's centered on the turntable, and you like what you're looking at, then you go ahead and click stop or click the pink on the preview, and it will stop it. Then you reach over and you take the object off the turntable, and then you click initial. What this does is this scans the turntable and anything around what your object is. So you want to run this scan for like 20 seconds. I know sometimes it'll do 10 seconds all on its own. If it's got a good picture, it go ahead and shuts off the initial scan. But if not, after 20 seconds, you can go ahead and click on it, and it'll stop it. And then what you want to do is put your object back on the turntable, and now you're ready to go ahead and scan. So you go ahead and click scan, and it'll do 320 frames of the object that you're scanning. Now, if you notice on the left, that's what tells you it's either you're too far or too close. It'll say too far or too close, and then you just go over and manipulate the object until it's right where you have excellent. You do that during the preview process. That gives you a chance to get everything in place. Once you hit your 320 frames, you're done with your first scan, and it will stop on its own. Now we'll go ahead and process that scan. Now you can leave it alone and say I'm done, but if you have a complex object like I'm doing, where it has a void or a hole in it, you can click on append, and what that does, it will allow you to do multiple scans to pick up all the sides. You can see as I'm tilting it, there's a hole in the bottom. Now we need to scan that. So we hit append, and it goes back to preview. You can go through the preview if you want and make sure everything's good, but then set your object kind of on its side, and then go ahead and click scan. And what this does, it will go ahead and scan the same object just in a different orientation. Now you can see I got the object on its side, and now the turntable is going to start turning, and now I'm going to do a full rotation or 320 frames of the object on its side. Now you saw in the very beginning how I had the scanner up on a tripod kind of high. The problem is when you do that, you can see the top portion of this pot in that void. It's not going to get. It's going to get right here where the back of the face is, but it's not going to get the other side. So once you get 320 frames done, it'll build again. Now take your pot or your object and flip it on the other side. The scanner, as it's scanning these objects, it is pinpointing different areas of whatever the object is you're scanning. And you can see now on the right, I have 2 scans. And you can see there's a void at the top of that pot that it still hasn't gotten. So now I'm going to place the pot in the opposite side, and I'm going to do another scan. So this will be the 3rd scan. And the scanning software is going, like I said, it's going to pinpoint areas of the object. And then at the end, you can combine them or align them. And it's going to try to find areas that are consistent between all 3 so that it can align it and get all those areas that we're missing. So now I'm scanning the other side of the pot, and that area, that void that was on the top is now on the bottom. It's actually a little bit to the side. So when it gets done with 320 frames, you'll see that there's one little area that it didn't get, but it's going to be okay because we're going to use Mesh Mixer to fix that area. So now this 3rd scan is done. It's going to go ahead and process it, and then you'll see over to the right we'll have 3 scans now. So now what I do is you can go over to the right and you can select all 3 scans. Now all 3 of them show up on the screen. And then you can go ahead and click Align. Now this takes a while, so I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up. All right, so now I have all 3 combined. You can see the table, the turntable is in all 3. I could have done one more scan to get that last part, but I don't like to push it. So I have all 3 of them combined. Now what we want to do is we want to process what we've scanned and get rid of all of that extra crap that's on the that's in the scan. So with this, there's an area over to the right. I got to find out where that's at. So you can see that little black spot. That's where the scanner didn't get. It got it on the outside of it. It just didn't get it on the inside. So, but I think we're still going to be okay. That small area, we're going to be able to process it and do in Mesh Mixer. But on the right hand side here, you have all the different processes that can be done. So you want to go ahead and click on each one, except for the one on the bottom. It's kind of hard for me to see because I've got it on the video editor. It's really small. But you select all the ones except for the one on the bottom. And then you want to go ahead and set that to 300,000. I set it 300,000 because I use what's it called? The CAD, TinkerCAD. And I use TinkerCAD, and TinkerCAD requires at least 300,000. Can be no more. So this thing by default is 400,000, this 300,000. Once you have all done, go ahead and hit process. And this can take a while. You want to go ahead and give it a name. And this can take a little while depending on your computer. So I'm going to go ahead and speed this up. Once I give this a name. Select, make sure all three scans are selected. So now once that's done, you want to go ahead and export it. And I think by default, it keeps doing it as an OBJ file. But I like doing STL. So it really doesn't matter. Um, the only thing is if you're going to use TinkerCAD, you got to make sure it's less than 25 megs, or it won't let you export it. I like using TinkerCAD because it's really easy. I'm not all into uh, AutoCAD and all that stuff. I'm just now starting to tinker with a scanner, and I pretty much got this process down. So you want to go ahead and export it, save it somewhere. And you can see that spot in the back. That's that area that didn't scan very well, but you can see we got a pretty good scan. I mean, except for that little area. I think that I think this pot came out pretty good. So for scanning wise, we're pretty much done. The only thing we got to do now is we got to put a hole in the bottom because it's a planer pot. And I also use Bambu Labs Bambu Studio for 3D printing. So you can see I have Bambu Studio up here. And if I want to drag it into Bambu Studio, I can bring it in there and see how it looks. Hopefully you can see this. That's another scan that I did of a different pot. But if I go ahead and import it, bring it in there, and there it is. Good idea to rotate it, get it on see there's the little spot in the back, but you can see on the other side it's solid. So I don't know how that's going to come out, but I like bringing it into Mesh Mixer and let Mesh Mixer analyze it and then fix that problem for me. So all I got to do with this now is rotate it a little, rotate it back on the build plate so it's nice and flat. So now I got it nice and flat on the build plate. You just want to go ahead and what I do is set up supports. I think this needs a little bit of supports. Increase the wall size a little bit, and then go ahead and save the project. That way, if I ever want to print this, I can just bring it right into Bambu Lab. It's all set up the way I like it, and I can just bring it in and print it. So it's not that big of a deal. But now let's go on to Mesh Mixer. So this is Mesh Mixer. It's so easy to use. I didn't even know this existed. But what you want to do is just import your object, and I'm going to import something different. Um, Honestly, I imported this object in here and worked it, thinking it was the other file, but it has the same problem, an area in the back that I had missed. And all you got to do with this is go down here to, I think it's analyze. I can't really see it. Um, Let it find all the problems that it sees, and just tell it to fix it. And I tell it to smooth it out and let it go ahead and fix all the problems that it sees for me. I'm not a 3D CAD guy, so I really don't know how to do that. Doesn't take long to do it, and boom. Now those areas, they had holes. In this pot, those areas actually had holes in it. And Mesh Mixer went ahead and cleaned it up for me. Now the other problem I have is all these jagged edges around the top. Um, the a pot that I started this video on didn't have these problems, but I wanted to show you if you have these jagged edges, something weird that gets scanned. When you go into Mesh Mixer, you can go into an area in Mesh Mixer, select, and shrink down the size of the pen or marker or whatever it is, select areas, and then you can tell it to smooth it out, to delete it, to remove it, and leave a smooth surface. So that's what I'm doing here, and smooth it out. And sometimes you have to do it a few times, I noticed, to get it down smooth the way you want it. And then you'll see that it'll eventually be a nice smooth edge, and you don't have those pointed edges. I don't know where those came from because the original pot did not have those pointed edges. But when you 3D scan, if it doesn't see it right, or if it sees something else, it'll drop in whatever it thinks it is. But the more I do this, every time I do this, it smooths it out a little more. I'll do it a few times, and then it'll be done. And I know I can get anybody on here can critique all they want. I'm basically learning how to do this from the beginning. I've never touched any of this stuff before, so I'm sure there's some people out there that probably says, "Man, you're doing it the hard way." But to me, this was not being able to find certain things on YouTube to understand exactly what I needed to do. This was the easiest fix for me. And now I swear by Mesh Mixer. It's a great software for people who are really stupid at this process like I am. So you can see now those edges have gotten smoother. There's still a couple jagged edges in there that I'm going to go ahead and clean them up too. And then after this, I'm going to go into TinkerCAD. TinkerCAD is on. I'll put a link to TinkerCAD in the description. TinkerCAD is just a um, web page. It's free. You can do all kinds of stuff. It's very basic. Something that I needed, something that was very basic. But it allows you to do some. I'm sure you people out there that are really good at it can do some really complicated stuff, but most of it is really simple stuff for me to do the basics. But once I get done with this, I get everything smoothed out. I found a few more little edges that I need to get rid of. And see, every time you do the analyze, it'll come up and tell you anything that's wrong. So I think that looks pretty good. I think on the nose, I found an area that needed to be fixed. I I kind of did this video without audio, and now I'm coming back and commentating onto it. So I'm not, um, I'm not exactly, and I'm doing it through this software, makes the screen extremely small, where it's really hard for me to see what I'm doing. But I know when I come to an area here, I'll see a problem with the nose. There it is. There's these little jagged edges on the nose. I'm going to go ahead and select those and then go right up the nose and then smooth that out. And there you go. Now you have a nice smooth nose. Not too bad. So now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead and export the object so that I can send it over to my printer. I printed one of these and I still have a few things left to clean up this particular pot. So it didn't come out exactly. All the seams were lined up, so I'm going to print with random seams. I printed with 6 walls to give it some strength and 30% infill. I don't think I need that. I'm going to back that off. But now let's go ahead and move on to TinkerCAD. Here I'm importing into Bambu Studio just to see what it looks like. And of course you gotta get it lined up on the build plate. All right, so now we got it in Bambu Studio. We can go ahead and uh, slice it and send it to the printer. And this is to print that other one. But um, that's just to show you that it started printing. And now I'm going to go ahead on over to TinkerCAD and show you how to put a hole in the bottom of that other pot. So this is TinkerCAD when it first comes up. So now that we have TinkerCAD up, all we got to do is come up and import. Like I said, it's got to be less than 25 megs and less than 300,000, I don't know what that is, geometric shapes or something like that. So when you do your scan and you compile it, process it, you got to make sure you're 300,000 or less. So it takes a little time for this to come up, and then we'll be ready to show you what's going on. All right, now here's our object, and we can take a look at it. And I already put a hole in this because I forgot to video it. But I'm going to show you how I did it. It's actually pretty easy to do. Once you get your object in there, you determine where you want to put your hole. Obviously, I want to put it right at the bottom. This is a flower pot, so I want to be able to have a drain. So you go over to the right and you select a round object and make sure you have it as a hole. You can have a solid or a hole. We want a hole. Then you line it up where you want it and you go ahead and set up the size. Now, every time you bring something into the plate, it starts at the bottom. It starts on the plate. So you have to determine where do you want it. Because I want this to go through the object, here I'm sizing it down to, I think it's 5 or 10 millimeters. I can't really see. Then you want to go ahead and center it where you want it. I want it right on the hole. or right in the middle of the bottom of the pot. Now it sits on the plate, but I wanted to make sure I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the pot. So if you turn it on its side, you'll see that little teardrop at the top. You can bring it down under the plate. So now I have it thick enough to go through the top. It shows up through the top of the hole or the base, and then it also shows through the bottom of the base. So it's all the way through. And then all you got to do, I can't really find where the select all is, but you can hit Control A or Command A for a Mac, and then you can select Group or Control G or uh, Command G, and then wait. It takes a little bit to finish. So you'll know it's done because now it's all back to blue and everything's all one piece, and you have a nice hole in the bottom. So what I'm going to do now, I want to go ahead and export this to a STL file. I accidentally hit input. Select STL, and it automatically downloads it to your downloads. But now I'm going to show you what it looks like when the product's done.
Here we go. That's the final product. The one on the right was the one that was printed. You can see that area that the scan mixed or missed, but Mesh Mixer, I didn't even use Mesh Mixer on this, but it was able to close it. The other side of it looks just fine. It's going to have dirt in it anyhow, but that's not too bad. Look at it from the side. That's a pretty good scan. So if you have any questions, hit me up. Critiques, I don't have any problems, ideas, make my scans even better, which I don't know how that can be because that's pretty good. Let me know in the comments and subscribe. I'll talk to y'all later.